All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Roundtable 87. We got another great panel on deck here. We got my man, Lukey from Lukey Boxing, Big Dog Lukey. Got my brother from another mother, D-Style Boxing. And we got Dangerous Dave from the 408 from the Shoe Shine Boxing podcast, along with his partner, Philly Irish Drew. So let's get started. Big fight. Everyone's going to really want to talk about and be interested in is this Bam Rodriguez fight over Sor Rungvisai here. Now, I have a big question for the panel, and not only for the panel, but for the boxing fans out there. Will Bam Rodriguez be that next little guy superstar, sort of like how Michael Carbajal was back in the day, right? But he most notably known for his rivalry with Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez, right? And I think they had the first $1 million, flyweight fight, right? So could Bam pick up that mantle and carry that torch and be the next guy? I'm going to start with you, Dave. What do you think?
Oh man, I've been thinking about this all week, and I'm so happy that you're bringing this up. Okay, first of all, the short answer is that undoubtedly, yes, he is going to be boxing's next superstar. Right now, he's the leading contender for Boxer of the Year, Fighter of the Year. In my eyes, if he gets a commanding performance again later this year, another knockout performance against potentially a 112-pound champion, I think he's going to be a sure win for Fighter of the Year. But what's on my mind is he going to have that commercial success, the crossover appeal of, say, Manny Pacquiao? Manny Pacquiao won his first flyweight title in 1998 against a Thai fighter. And he wasn't even famous in the Philippines yet, but here he is winning his first title at flyweight in 1998. We know what happened with him. He literally nearly 10 divisions, I think, 10 different divisions. Will Bam have that ability to do something remarkable like Manny Pacquiao? At the moment right now, Beeb, I think he's going to be Fighter of the Year. That's what it looks like, and I'm concerned about this thing with with his brother Joshua Franco, because it seems like he wants to go down to 112 and relinquish the Chocolatito opportunity. A fight he deserves equally as much as his brother Joshua Franco, but that he wants to relinquish that opportunity to Chocolatito and go for the opponents at 112. As he stated this week, he wants to be undisputed at 112 pounds, which I think he has a great opportunity to. Here's my thought, Beeb. He goes down to 112. He can go towards that commercial crossover, international global star appeal if he fights that Japanese fighter, Nakatani, who holds a title at 112. He goes to Japan, introduces himself to the Japanese audience, which is a stellar move, right? I mean, Gennady Golovkin just did that recently. And then there's the fighter, who's that other fighter? Sonny Edwards in the UK, who wants to fight him so bad. Sonny Edwards has 4 knockouts. Tell me he doesn't beat the crap out of Sonny Edwards. Goes over to the UK, introduces himself, which will pave the way for him to become an international global star in boxing.
Yeah. D, what do you think of Bam Rodriguez? Do you think he can be the next big little guy? Hate to use that word little guy, but he is a little guy.
He's a little dude. Look, here's the thing, man. First of all, I think he's a phenomenal fighter, extremely talented, has already beaten 2 really good veterans at 115 division. He moved up to fight. The bookies had it right. The casinos, anyway, I should say. They see talent in him. You hear a lot of good things about Bam from his peers, the fighters. You hear a lot of good things about Bam with the media, especially over there in Texas, that have been close to him and have covered him a lot. You hear a lot of good things about Bam from the fans. That's a trifecta. Okay, you can't go wrong with that. The talent's there. He's extremely talented. The Achilles heel is going to be the same thing, Roy Jones was talking about. Like he ain't going to be a big star because nobody, grows up saying, I want to be the 115-pound champion. Well, I mean, nobody says they want to be the junior welterweight champion either. Like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't know what that means, but what I do know is that he is at a disadvantage, right? Because he's in the smaller weight classes. It's the way it is. All right. And There's a lot of competition at 115, though. There's a lot of names for him to fight. He don't need to move down. If he wants to fight a Japanese fighter, he could fight Ioka. He's right there, right? If he wants to fight Chocolatito, he's right there. If he wants to fight who I believe is the best in the weight class, Gallo Estrada, he's right there, right? If he wants to do a Mexican national versus Mexican American clash, they have it. Again, that's a known rivalry, so that's something that they got. Is he going to be a big star? I don't know. I've seen guys that are extremely talented, and they're not doing anything wrong, and for whatever reason they don't blow up. And I see guys that I don't get it, and they blow up, right? But I'm gonna have to say yes, because I think he's going to keep winning. I think he's going to keep putting names under his belt. He's going to pull off some big wins. He's pulling off spectacular wins. He's winning in spectacular, exciting fashion. He's not just winning. He's winning in spectacular fashion. I'm going to say yes. I do think he's going to be a star, at least in the boxing world. And I do think you're going to see big paydays for him, and he's probably going to be the money guy in that division if he keeps getting these wins.
Lukey, what are your thoughts on Bam Rodriguez? Do you think he can be that next big little guy?
Yeah, I think he is. He retired the guys that we didn't really want to see anymore. He got rid of Quadros. He got rid of Rungvisai. He's really good. Guys like Ruben Villa said he was always really good. He can probably win all the belts at 112. And realistically, the guy's huge. Like, he's very, very big for the weight. So, I mean, if he made it all the way to featherweight at a point when he gets to 30 and wins a world title, it's not out of the realm of possibility. We're looking at someone that I think could be a 6 to 7 division world champion with a really famous team around him, with Robert Garcia, a really good person in Robert Garcia, someone that cares about his fighters, comes from a fighting family. And also Eddie Hearn has done an exceptional job at promoting these lower weight fighters. So as long as he just keeps doing what he's doing, he was supposed to fight for a world title last November in Fresno. That fight fell apart. He still fought on it. Literally nobody was talking about him then. Then he fights this year twice, and now he's at the top of the division. If he keeps progressing the way he's going to go, we're looking at a top 10 guy and one of the only people are aware of in the lower weights.
Yeah. Like you said, I think Eddie's done a great job with him. And like D-Style said, I think he does have all the makings for a superstar. He's got the look. He's got the personality. People are starting to get behind him too. And he's based out of an area where they're a lot of boxing fans are into the lower weight classes too, right? So I think he's got a lot of momentum on his side right now. And I think all he has to do is just keep riding the wave. And I agree with you, Lukey. He's 22 years old. He's like 5'5". I don't think it's impossible to imagine him going all the way up to like maybe hitting his peak at possibly 126 or even 130. Maybe that could be pushing it. But, we've seen some guys like Azuma Nelson weren't the tallest, longest guys in the world, and they were very good at 130-pound fighters, So I think it's possible for him to be a multi-division world champion and a future pound-for-pound top guy, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to following his career. And shout out to Eddie Hearn, too, because I think he's really pushing these little guys on DAZN. I think, these guys really have a platform. And not only DAZN, but Showtime, too. Showtime's been doing a great job. We got guys like Stephen Fulton, Akhmadaliev, fighting at 122. Great. It's a great time for boxing for the lower weight classes. I think some of these guys can cross over because of the platforms pushing them. And I commend the platforms doing that. So let's talk about another fight that I can't believe I was actually starting to get excited for. And I've always said this, people look at a fight and they downplay it, diminish it, and they degrade it because they look at the fighters involved in it. But I've always said, if you take two guys that are on that same level, right, whether or not they're top level guys or not, whether or not you think they're great fighters or not, if they're on that same level, they can produce a good matchup. And I felt that way about this fight. And I know a lot of people are going to scoff at me. D-Style's already scoffing at me about it. But I was looking forward to Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul. And I'm not saying it's
set the table for us.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's off the table right now. I guess Tommy Fury's having some visa issues that could get worked out. But we'll have to cross our fingers on that one. But I think this fight could be an entertaining fight. I think both these guys are on the same level. Is there, if let's speak in hypotheticals here. Let's say the fight does come off, which I feel pretty good about it coming off. I think they'll square it away. Let's say this fight does come off. Will this be the first real fight for Jake Paul? I mean, he's going to be officially fighting a real boxer for the first time. Will this be will he get credit for beating Tommy Fury if he does so? And will people look at this as a real opponent for him? And do you guys look at Tommy Fury as a real opponent for him? I'm going to start with you, D-Star.
I mean, okay, first of all, when people say a real fight, you know what I mean? Like what if I go to Walmart right now and I shove a dude and he throws a punch at me and we start fighting, that's a real fight. You know what I mean? If like so I think what you're trying to say is, I believe anyway, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is it's going to be the fight that people are going to give him respect for. Like he's fighting his first real professional boxer in a boxing ring. And I feel like that's what you're asking. The problem is, and this goes for a lot of the Jake Paul fans, y'all have been talking about how Fury's brother ain't shit. Fury's brother sucks. He ain't nobody either. Who's he fought? He ain't fought nobody either. So like I'm just saying, like what this is a fight between two novices. That's what it is. No different than like if I go and I watch the dark matches, and some obscure boxing event. That's what it is. It's two novices fighting each other. So does he get credit? Yeah, he doesn't get like he paid off the mortgage credit with all his payments on time. He doesn't get an 800, credit rating because he's going to fight, fucking Fury. All right, Tommy Fury. He'll get he took out a $300 loan and he paid it on time credit. That type of credit. Now, he'll get credit, but I could only give him so much credit. This isn't exactly a Cadillac he's taking out. It's a $300 credit card. That's what it is. That's the type of credit you get. You're not going to get like, oh, he's a real fighter now. What does that mean? Like, say Ebony Bridges beats Roman and like, I told you I could fight. Yeah, I could fight. That's what this is. So all I know is that Jake Paul and the same for Tommy, by the way. Both of them get credit. The question is how much credit? $300 Capital One first-time credit card credit. That's the type of credit they're going to get. And the loser is the guy that couldn't pay off the $300 credit card. That type of credit he's going to get. That's it. Payday loan credit. That's it.
Dave, if this fight comes off, what are your thoughts on it? And do you look at this as a real opponent for Jake Paul?
Well, I think this fight is perfect for him because both of these guys are coming from something else, right? You've got one guy in Tommy Fury. He's a former reality TV star in the UK, tantamount to something like the Jersey Shore. He was a member of a TV show just like that. Then you have Jake Paul, who has this commanding YouTube audience, podcast audience, and then they become boxers, right? So they're perfect for each other. Tommy Fury's got the famous name attached to him as well, and he's got the television good looks. They're going to get credit from their audience, whoever comes away with this victorious, the YouTube audience that's been watching him for years grow up on TV. They're not going to get the credit from people like us. I hope not, at least. Yes, they're both professional fighters now, and Tommy Fury is a professional fighter, but neither of them have amateur pedigree that we can speak of, So like D-Styles pointed out, they're basically two novices learning on the job who are somehow headlining a pay-per-view event. That's the irony, is that Jake Paul's one of the highest grossing pay-per-views boxers of 2021. Highest grossing earning, right? Fighter of 2021, amongst the top 5 at least. That's kind of the sick part of it all.
Yeah. Lukey, it almost pains me to ask you this because I know you're such a purist and I know you're not a big fan of these type of fights, but what are your thoughts on this matchup? I mean, do you think this could turn out to be a decent fight?
See, I'm going to throw a curveball at you, Beeb. I actually like it because it's like, look, Jake Paul isn't out here saying that he's something he's not, right? He's basically like, I'm going to fight whatever it is. They're entertainment bouts. To me, him and Chris Lovejoy are two of the boxers I enjoy watching because I'm entertained. I get some type of dog and pony show. They fight. I have no clue how the fight's going to look. I know Jake Paul will win, but I don't know how it's going to look. And there's going to be tons of just like stuff. I can tune in and out of it. I can find out about the drama. I can leave the drama. Is the fight going to be good? Probably not. Is Jake Paul going to win by knockout? It might happen, but at least it's something. And how many weeks do we watch boxing and we get a good fight or some type of fight, but it literally, there's nothing we take away from it. We just go, who are they going to fight next? Or where do they sit in the division? I think the nice thing about Jake Paul, and I'll also throw Christopher Lovejoy in this conversation, is there's a level of entertainment where going into the fight, coming out of the fight, and even seeing who attends the fight, that is part of the show for me. It's just the fight itself isn't really interesting to me, but everything around it is kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just view this as another way. Like, Jake Paul will win a world title. The cruiserweight division is awful. It's like historically awful. There's going to be a moment where Jake Paul can win a cruiserweight world title.
Lukey.
No, it's an awful.
This is an historic moment right here on the channel.
But it's true.
Not
it's
that
like
good.
that is a really bad division. It's like,
who's it going to be? Bradis, or who's it going to be?
Well, he's thinking
all you have to do is wait for an old champion like Bradis to retire, right? Then you have to find someone that was fighting at middleweight. Maybe it's a Chavez, maybe it's a Badu Jack at 41 years old, and then you sanction the fight.
A vacant belt.
Then it's put in a city that gives Jake every single advantage, like a Cleveland or whatever. And now you have a seasoned older guy up against a young guy with the odds stacked against him. It's no different than Butterbean versus Larry Holmes. It's no different than Kimbo Slice fighting in Oklahoma. Like, it's not really, boxing doesn't have a moral compass. Guys like Jake Paul make so much money. Sanctioning bodies are going to find a way to get them a world title. It's just what it is.
You know what? Despite all that, he's still not going to win a world title.
So what if, like, Makabu, he waits for Makabu to be like 40 years old?
Makabu will knock this dude out, bro.
Him and
Then
Makabu,
skin. It'll skin him alive in that ring.
Him and Makabu fight for a vacant title when Makabu's like 40.
I mean,
Does he have a shot?
Like, let's just think of like who's a limited guy at super middleweight or light heavyweight right now. Like, just think of like limited guys, like G Mohammadi, who fought Sergey Kovalev. Imagine if he gets randomly thrown in there and it's like, okay, he's a good fighter. He moves a bit, but he's been in flux. He's always been a world level fighter in Europe, but he's never done anything. If he's 42, has to rely on a jab. There's always going to be these type of guys. Chavez is the easy one, but I mean, an Anderson Silva at cruiserweight. Imagine
he won't beat Anderson Silva, brother.
We don't know, like what. And then the other thing about it is like, what's the drug testing protocols? We never hear that about these fights, right?
No,
we never hear about.
I agree that we don't know, right? When you say we don't, okay, I guess. Well, we don't know anything really. I mean, we're all guessing, but you did make the statement he will win a world title, and I'm telling you, I don't believe he's going to win a world title
because boxing
even
is
if
driven
they
by
had
money.
pick somebody. No, I get that, but just because it's driven by money, he still needs to, like, the scenario you gave was like the weakest scenario possible. Like, they're gonna pick Chavez Jr. 5 years from now and put him in a vacant fight for a vacant belt against Jake Paul. Okay, maybe they'll do that, but as it stands right now, he hasn't even shown me he could beat a dude ranked in the top 100. So I'm not even going to be talking about no world title right now. I don't even know he could beat. I don't even know he could beat Fury.
How old is he right now, Jake Paul? Like 20. Let me see how old he is. I think he's like 24.
I just don't like. This is a guy that was almost knocked out
25.
by an MMA fighter. He was almost taken out.
He's 25 years old, right?
And he gasses out in 8-round fights.
Can he get better? So can he get better in 5 years?
For sure. His level of progression is pretty impressive. From his first fight to where he's at, I've worked with a lot of amateurs and seen a lot of amateurs. Most people don't progress as quick as he is. He's obviously not like elite, but he's like a solid kid that goes to national tournaments that's learning on the job.
I don't think you think that highly of him because you have to come up with the weakest scenario for him to get a belt.
But
Like
how many fighters?
Chavez Jr. at cruiserweight.
Do you know
to
how
win the
many
belt.
world champions literally aren't that good right now? A lot
Who?
of boxing is
Name
matchmaking.
someone as bad as Jake Paul.
I'm
Name
not
it,
go.
please.
I'm not going to name people, not because they aren't that. I'm not out here to name call. Just look at who people are fighting. Most of these vacant titles, most of the breadwinners in divisions are not always the best fighters. The fighters know who are good. It's all about paths and roadways.
I get that. No,
And
I
it's
get
like,
that. But
because
I
like,
just
if you
give
give me
one
a
example.
decent fighter and $100,000, I can get him into a world title shot. It's that simple. It's just you have to create a roadway. You have to allocate the funds and figure out a way to do it.
Okay,
And that's all
who
it
are
is.
the guys that are like a Jake Paul that got a belt?
Well, I mean, just look at guys who are consistently fighting in their hometown, fighting vacant titles. And
Well-
when they do step up in competition, it's very limited or it takes a very long time to get there.
But the limited competition they're fighting are far better than Fury's brother. They're far better than the MMA fighters who are wrestlers, not strikers, that Jake Paul has fought, and in one case struggled against. It's not a gamer that he fought. It's not a basketball player. Like I think we're kind of.
But here's the
in
thing.
my opinion, we're jumping the gun. This is a dude that trembled in his feet, okay, by the thought of an Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva had been calling him out.
And he's also a dude that made Amanda Serrano a millionaire. And that's the other side of the coin. He's making a lot of people a lot of money. And this sport
he
is built on
subsidized
money.
her purse. I get it, but I don't know how that means.
Do you know how many boxers lose money to the promotion? Do you know how many fighters don't make anything? The promoters just run a charity to get them on cards. They're like, here you go. Here's your salary. You do nothing.
If the conversation is, if you want to have a conversation about what his potential as a promoter, that's a completely different conversation.
You don't think you can get better in 5 years? You think a 30-year-old?
Everybody gets better in 5 years. Everybody. That's not unique. But
this is the most historic worst division ever.
Makabu's 35 right now. So let's say
he looks
5
40.
years.
Well, Usyk was the undisputed cruiserweight champion, and look at what it did to Joshua. It can't be that bad. Like you know what I mean?
Usyk's the best cruiserweight ever in history. It's like Usyk and Evander Holyfield, Dwight Kwai, and then a bunch of random people.
Yeah, I think I would put Usyk.
David Haye. Yeah, are we gonna David Haye's up there?
I think if a guy like Makabu hangs around till he's 40, and Jake Paul fights him when he's 30. It's not impossible for Jake Paul to beat him.
Man, this dude ain't going to be boxing in 5 years. We'll talk then.
What about if he fought Riyad Mahiri? Didn't he pick up a loss overseas, like in a fight that was kind of like a fight that he was supposed to win a world title, and then they had to go? I mean, that's a fight right there in a few fights. You go bring him to America. I'll look that up on BoxRec. But I mean, he's holding the form of a WBA belt. You got Badu Jack, who's a fantastic fighter, but he's very old and he's undersized at this division. You got Kovalev, who's undersized at this division, an extremely talented fighter. You got Chris Billiam Smith, who's a talented fighter, but gets hit a ton. I mean, this is not Murderer's Row. This is not the 140
I'm not saying,
division.
well, let me say this. I'm not saying that the cruiserweight division is the murderous role of boxing or the best division or most competitive division or has the most talent. I've never said that. What I am saying, though, there's still professionals at that level. There's still high-level cruiserweights, even though it might be the weakest of all of boxing, but it's still high level. If Jake Paul was really that dude, he'd be doing what Ahmad Ali was doing then in a couple of fights. He's not doing that. This guy is taking, and I'm not even saying he's wrong for doing this, but he's fought a gamer. He's fought a basketball player. He's fought MMA fighters who were not strikers, by the way. There were wrestlers who were horrible at striking. Like there's no way to gauge how good. Like it's one thing to say, well, I mean that guy gets hit, and this guy's not that good, and these other champions they're kind of facing weak opposition. Okay, cool, but Jake Paul hasn't faced anywhere near the weakest common denominator of any world champion today.
So no what is Keyshawn Davis good because he hasn't really fought anyone that's at his skill level yet?
You and I both know he's good.
But then how can you and I not know that Jake Paul won't be good? Because you just said it's only based
Because
upon the
we
talent
know
here in the ring.
Keyshawn Davis is good.
But how do we know he's good?
You got to give the guy a couple more years, man. Like,
Okay, because it doesn't. You're talking about the level of opposition, but he's fighting real boxers.
Yeah, but
Right?
those boxers
Better
on
than-
paper
than-
are less
than Tommy
distinguished.
Fury.
Tyrone Woodley had won a world championship in another organization as a multimillionaire. These other guys are coming in almost willing to lose just to get an opportunity on ESPN. I don't know.
I don't know if just because he's a multimillionaire or whatever, I don't know what that has to do with anything.
That
But
means
if it's
money
it's
means
this,
that you're successful.
No, but
you
here's
get
the
money
thing.
for being better.
He made his highest purse ever against Jake Paul, and there was rumors, spread by Clarissa Shields that he wasn't allowed to knock out Jake Paul. I don't know how true that is, but if we're going to be conspiracy theories, we could throw it out about Jake Paul too. If he's offering these guys more money than they've ever made, they said the same thing about the other MMA dude. Okay, was walking around smiling and all that other good stuff. Okay, if there's a conspiracy about anyone being gifted anything, you spelled it out earlier. You said that this guy has the money, he's a millionaire, the sanctioning bodies will work with him, and they'll put him in there with an undersized, old ass motherfucker in a vacant title fight to give him a belt. If anyone out here is going to do any type of conspiracy to get a belt, it would be Jake Paul.
Yeah, I want to add, guys, when Luki was making that point about hype trains like that, in recent memory, I think about Lucien Boutet, who avoided the Super 6 middleweight tournament and defended his title for years in Canada against fighters.
Andrade, brother.
Can I ask a question?
He fought Glenn Johnson. Like, what do you mean? This is a different level.
Very important question coming up. Does anyone remember the guy that Devin Haney beat to win his vacant WBC title?
Antonio Moran, maybe? Or was it Zaire Abduliev?
Zaire Abduliev.
What does us knowing them have anything to do with anything?
Well, because there's a lot of soft touches out there. I agree with Lukey. There's a lot of soft touches out there where guys can become champions.
Okay, so the sport is full of a bunch of crappy fighters and only a couple dozen dudes are good. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much.
The reality is,
I don't agree with that at all.
Well, let me get this in here. This is another great point. Because there's so many titles, because
Jake Paul's a top 10 dude right now. Is that what you're saying? Of course he's not.
This is what you have to understand, though. When you have franchise titles out there, you have regular titles, you have interim titles, you have all these titles, the silver, the gold. Again, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could pick up a WBA regular title somewhere. Just being honest, and he could call himself a world champion. That's all I'm saying.
You know what? It's also not out of the realm that if the tables were reversed and he had no fame to begin with, he would be a journeyman from Tijuana, coming into to fight on some card in San Diego, with 20 losses and 2 wins. He could be that guy too. He could be that guy, the journeyman. But he has fame attached to himself.
And
he's already famous.
Fame. He's earned it. It's not like it was gifted. He went out, worked it, figured out how to use social media, weaponized it. Him or his brother are probably going to be the president of the United States in 20 years because they're better at social media than other people. It's like, it sounds ridiculous, but this is the way the country is going. And it's like, I'm looking at this dude, Riyad Maher of Belgium. He only fights in Belgium. He's got 30 wins, 1 loss. He's a solid fighter. But you mean to tell me in 2 to 3 years, how old is this guy? He's 29 years old. So in 2 to 3 years,
when Jake Paul gets knocked out, it's going to be a glorious day, man. I'm going to do a live.
I don't like it. Like the emotion with the fact is hard to separate. It's sounding like
no, because you're comparing world champions that are fighting ranked fighters that have earned their position there. Whether we know who they are or not doesn't matter.
But we criticize the rankings all the time. Like look at Yildirim; he was a mandatory for Canelo, and we all criticize that. So.
He's not as good as Yildirim, brother. Yildirim will fuck this dude up.
That's actually a fight.
It's a good fight.
That would actually
you
be a
think
fight
that's a fight?
I hope in a year and a half. That's a good fight with Pedro Diaz in the corner. I mean, if Jake wants to keep getting ranked, yeah.
When these guys get old, right? And I mean, look at Mayweather and Logan Paul. How is Logan Paul going the distance with Floyd Mayweather?
Because Mayweather's 44 and he's a little dude. That's why.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
These
what if
dudes aren't
what if,
soft. They work hard.
so what if Makabu?
It has nothing to do with hard work, or it has
What
nothing
if
to do
a
with that.
40-year-old Makabu
I
fights
guess.
a
Yeah, go ahead.
40-year-old Makabu versus a 30-year-old Jake Paul?
Makabu beats him. Unless I see a significant improvement in Jake Paul, my opinion is not
You
going to
don't
change.
think he's going to get any better in 5 years?
It has to be very significant.
All right.
Very.
He's gonna make a
This
lot
is
of
a
money,
dude,
man.
Like this
This
is
is
a
what's
dude.
gonna make Jake
Look
Paul
who
rich.
he's fought. He's fought two wrestlers that are not that good at striking. Okay? Period. One of them is probably the worst striker in the history of MMA.
Yes.
Like arguably. Like I don't think you get any worse than
He
him.
spent 1 week with Freddie Roach. He spent 1 whole week learning how to fight.
That's and then he was in the worst shape of his life on top of that. If anybody came for a payday, it's probably him. Right?
I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him a couple more years before we write him off. Come on.
Look, I have no problem with giving him the shot, but this him being anointed already is kind of ridiculous.
We're not anointing him. We're just saying that.
Oh, you're anointing him for sure, and bragging
impossible.
about how you know who he is and he's a millionaire and all this other stuff. Look, I don't know who.
What's wrong with millionaires? What's wrong with millionaires? You
I don't
like
know who
millionaires?
Dmitry Priyov was when Daniel Jacobs fought him, but he was good and he knocked him out. Just because I didn't know who he was, right?
That guy was
That
great.
doesn't mean he wasn't shit, right?
He's a great amateur, that guy.
There's guys that we don't know who they are, and then they end up pulling upsets like all the time against established people. Okay, being established doesn't mean anything. If being more popular was the way, if that's the way we graded how good guys were, then a lot of guys wouldn't be in top.
Chavez Jr. How did Chavez Jr. become a world champion?
Chavez Jr. actually fought a bunch of fights, though. Like I mean, you already know I'm not. You already know I wasn't a fan of Chavez Jr. I thought he actually.
Speak. What did Sebastian Speak do after he lost to Chavez Jr. when they fought? For the
I actually felt he won that fight, but that's besides the point. But Chavez Jr. it showed me more. He actually had, he beat Andy Lee. I mean, it's not he didn't do anything.
Who wins right now? Jake Paul versus Chavez Jr.
Right now, I would pick Chavez Jr.
Chavez Jr.
Yeah.
Right now,
I got Jake Paul, bro. I've lost all faith in Chavez Jr.
I think I would pick Jake Paul in that fight.
Do I trust Chavez Jr.? Not really, but
I would pick Jake Paul in that fight. So this guy was a world champion, Chavez Jr.
He was a world champion, but you already know he's compared to Jake Paul. He's smaller than Jake Paul. You know that.
Not really.
Yeah, he
I
is.
don't think so.
He is.
Walks around at 200 pounds, 210 pounds.
Because he's a fat slob. That's why.
What? He's like 6'2".
Because he's a cocaine addict. That's why. Well, what do you mean?
6'2".
So what does that? What does length have to do with size?
He's got a big frame. You see how much bigger he was than Andy Lee when they fought?
So Fondor, we're gonna put him at heavyweight now because he's 6'4". Well, what does that mean? Come on, stop.
Fondor could easily be a super middleweight. You know that.
Maybe. Let's
come
wait.
on.
Let's wait and see.
Come on, you know that.
Let's wait and see.
And again, Fondor is not as wide and thick as Chavez.
When he gets knocked out, it's
You
gonna be
think
awesome.
Chavez Jr. is a small guy? You think he's skinny?
Did I say he's a small guy? Well, what did I say?
You said he's not big.
No, that's not what I said.
You said he's just tall.
What did I say? No.
You're diminishing his muscle mass.
I said he's not as big as Jake Paul is what I said. Jake Paul never fought anybody his size, by the way. That's another thing.
But that's what you're supposed to do with prospects. Like, look, when you watch most undercards, you put them in.
I think Chavez Jr. is a big guy.
Okay, that's what you do with prospects. You put them in there with NBA players. They never
you put them in with smaller people, and then they're supposed to. So this is the way I look at it. You put a prospect in with a smaller fighter, and then they win some fights based on physicality or athleticism or just being younger. And then you have to guide them through fights where they have to use elite attributes of distance, timing, speed, power that will mold them into a world champion. And some of those fights they're potentially going to lose. And that's where you figure out who can then go and get the capital gain investment. Who are you going to make your ROI on? The fighters that win through that gauntlet become the contenders, become the people you invest in the main event.
Well, what I know is this. I never known of a prospect that they started him off with a gamer and then they put him in there with an NBA player. And then they found like the worst striker in the history of MMA to put him in the ring with. Like there ain't a boxer alive with a boxing license that Askren could beat in a boxing match. I would pick Beeb to beat Askren in a boxing match.
I think Jake Paul would beat Chavez Jr. right now, and you're saying Chavez Jr. was small. He weighed 187 his last fight. He weighed 184 the fight before that.
He's always walking around 200 plus.
Yeah, he's not small.
That's him as a fat slob, but that's not my
he's
point.
He's not fat. He's ripped.
But here's my other point. My other point is
guy's shredded.
Here's my other point. My other point is, like, what would Breidis do? Like to Chavez Jr. What would he do to him right now?
I put him in the hospital.
Like he put him in. Like it's like we're talking different levels here. Makabu would knock this dude out in 1-2 rounds. He would stop Chavez Jr.
I'd pick Jake Paul
we need to
beat Makabu in 3 years.
But let me just say this: if in order to envision him becoming world champion, we need to go to the lowest common denominator. In order to envision that, that's not a good starting point. Like I'm
marketing. It's called marketing. I'm trying to market the guy. Man.
Oh, market him all you want. He's gonna get knocked the fuck out
here.
too.
What do you want? You want this?
Right now, he pissed off Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's gonna sneak in a dude on him one day. I'm just telling you right now.
And he's beat 4 undefeated fighters to start his career off in boxing. That's the other way of looking at it, right?
Okay, but 2 of them never boxed in their. All of them never boxed. Come on, like you know that. Like,
never got in the way of marketing something, and we're not in the business. We're in the business of selling something.
Jake Paul never boxed before either.
Okay, but dude, saying he beat. Stop.
That's 4 undefeated fighters. Most boxers don't get in the ring with an undefeated fighter before a fight or 2.
And one more thing, and I know I keep interrupting your super chat there, but let me just say this. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, Jake Paul doesn't pretend to be something he's not, and then, he's just trolling when he says that. No. It's either one or the other, right? If he's going around saying, in 2 years, I'm going to knock out Canelo, and either he's trolling or he doesn't act like something he's not. He can't have it both ways. Just my opinion.
Well, he's telling you he's a troll. So he's not pretending he's not a troll, right? That's all.
All I know is that this dude ain't gonna ever beat any top fighter ever.
Okay.
Trust me.
Shout out to Sly Tendencies with the $5 super chat. He said, "Feel bad for MTK fighters getting railroaded by association. They're acting like Fury and Crawford were helping moving kilos across the board." And I agree with that too. Like, unless you're gonna start charging people with a crime just because the affiliation with MTK, if you don't have any charges or any evidence that could be brought up against anyone other than Daniel Kinahan, then this guilty by association is really, really frustrating to me, and I think it's not fair. It really isn't. Now, the Tommy Fury situation, I guess that was a visa problem, so that had nothing to do with Kinahan. But who knows what's going on with Tyson Fury? If they're giving Tyson Fury a hard time because of his affiliation with MTK or whatever, or because he took pictures with Kinahan, so Bob Arum took pictures with Kinahan. So again, anyone that took a picture with this guy, automatically they're drug dealer. I mean, what the fuck's going on here? What are we doing?
Hey,
what are we doing? You know what I mean? So
now, does it have to be a selfie, or is it like what type of picture?
I have no idea, man. I have no idea what this whole thing is. If you don't have any evidence to link anyone other than Kinahan to a crime, then what are we doing? That's all I'm saying.
Doesn't Tyson Fury, the relevant one, right? Doesn't he have a home in LA or something like that?
Yeah, he's got a home in LA. I think he's got a home in Vegas,
too.
So what, does he still have to pay property taxes and all that? Well, they don't let him in.
Of course.
I wouldn't pay shit if they're not gonna let me in.
Well, then they put a lien on your home.
Wow, I'll say fuck it. I mean, I'm just saying that they're never going to let him in. They'll probably let him in eventually.
They'll let him in. All right, let's move on here. Mikey Garcia announced his retirement very quietly.
Well, he didn't announce it.
Very quietly this week. Kind of retired under the radar. So I want to get everyone's thoughts on Mikey Garcia's career. And if you had a vote today to say whether or not he gets in the Hall of Fame, how would you vote? Start with you, Lukey.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey's my guy, man. Mikey was really, really pivotal when he was coming up. I think that the biggest shame is he went into that issue with Top Rank when he was looking like he was one of the best fighters in the world, and we never quite saw him get back to that point. But I mean, he's not unlike his brother, right? It's like Robert Garcia had this fantastic career and then kind of retired very quickly, like under the radar. And it's like Mikey kind of has that same where often with fighters, we don't ever remember. I was thinking about this the other day about Vince Carter and Roy Jones Jr. Obviously, Vincent Carter is a basketball player, but we never remember their prime. We always remember like when they're washed up or when it's like a little bit too much. And it's like when people go to vote, how much are people going to remember the Sandor Martin fight instead of him dropping Orlando Salido like multiple times in the first round, or beating, I think it was it Juan Carlos Payano? I think it was him on HBO Boxing, or dropping Juanma. When Mikey was on, he was a very, very special talent. I think just based on being around him and then seeing how hard he trained for the Errol Spence fight, I'd give him a vote, but I really shouldn't have a vote because I've always thought Mikey's a great person, a great ambassador of the sport. So, I mean, I think he did enough, but who am I to judge?
D, what are your thoughts on Mikey Garcia's career, and would you vote him into the Hall of Fame if you had a vote?
Honestly, I would. Now, with that said, I gotta be. I'm gonna say, like, I'm a little underwhelmed with his career, even though I would put him in the Hall of Fame because he did. I think he has Hall of Fame credentials, but I'm talking about I'm comparing him to him, right? His potential, what I felt he could have done. I still feel, and a lot of Lomachenko fans are going to like this. They're not. I honestly feel he would have beaten Lomachenko. It's not a given, of course, but I do think he could have won that fight. I feel he made a big, I don't know if it was a calculated risk or it was a money move. I don't know. I just don't think he belonged at welterweight. I just don't. And to go at like someone like Spence, who's a big welterweight, really good fighter, I thought that was a mistake. But I don't hold it against him, though. I mean, it is what it is. I give him credit for trying, but I feel like there was a lot left to be desired. Like don't get me wrong, a regular fighter would love this type, like a Jake Paul would love this type of career. You know what I mean? Like which he will never have. He'll never touch this level of career. But but all jokes aside, like just a regular fighter would love the type of credentials that Mikey Garcia has. But I do feel like he had a lot of potential. He was a really good fighter, and he left a lot to be desired based off of his own potential. You know what I mean? So I'm disappointed, but at the same time, if he feels he wants to retire, I gotta respect that. He announced it on Instagram, man. Like, what's like retired fighter? It's like, well, what do you mean you're retired? It is what it is. I think I would have loved to see him in the mix at 140. I understand he lost to Sandor Martin. I think he should have rematched him. I think he could have won that rematch, but I think after the Sandor Martin fight, he probably, I don't want to speak for him, but even his own brother kind of agreed with him retiring. I think he realized, like, if I lost to this guy, no offense to Sandor Martin, but if I lost to this guy, this is it. You know what I mean? And I think that's what convinced him to retire. And he's invested his money too, Plus, I saw him do an interview with Mauricio Suleiman. He looked like Andy Ruiz. Like, it was crazy. I thought it was Andy Ruiz at first. I'm like, oh shit, that's Mikey. You know what I mean? And so he's been enjoying life, eating a lot of tacos, eating a lot of burritos, driving around Lambos. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying. So he's enjoying. Hey, he's enjoying the life.
Fat shaming people. Come on.
He's enjoying. No, I'm not bashing. I'm saying he's enjoying.
Don't fat shame people because they like to eat.
No, I said he's eating a lot of burritos, a lot of tacos, and he's riding Lambos, and he's enjoying life, the fruits of his labor. So shout out to him, man. I do wish we would have seen more of him, though. Just got to be honest.
I actually thought that Sandor Martin fight was a draw, but again, you're supposed to beat a guy like that decisively. That's a bad look. That even for me scoring it a draw, that's still kind of like a bad look for Mikey Garcia, and that kind of just shows. Maybe his heart wasn't in it, the layoff or whatever. But, Calix, I got to go to you on this one. What did you think of Mikey Garcia's career? And if you had a vote, would you vote him into the Hall of Fame?
No, definitively no.
Whoa.
What?
And definitively no. Definitively no. So here's the thing. First of all, expectations, right? My expectations were high of him. He was in the lower weight classes coming up, right? 126, 130, running through guys. The comparisons to a cross-sport comparison was Tim Duncan, right? A guy who was fundamentally sound. It may have looked boring at times, but fundamentally sound, and he methodically broke guys down. Great talent, high ceiling, and he looked like a guy who couldn't miss. How we're talking about Bam Rodriguez right now, that's how we were talking about Mikey when he was at 126, right? I can't miss. This guy's going to run through divisions. And some good wins, Juanma, Salido, although it looked like he kind of looked for a way out against Salido in a way to the decision. Robert Easter Jr., Broner's a decent win. He's got decent wins, but he never had that great definitive career-defining win, right? Never had it. He stepped up to his credit, fought Errol Spence Jr. at 147, but we saw how that went. But here's my thing. He just never looked like he had it here mentally, and he never looked like he had the drive to be great. To me, a Hall of Fame fighter has to separate himself from his great peers of that era, right? And what did Mikey Garcia do to separate himself from other great fighters of his era? Nothing. I mean, he had lulls in his career, 4 division champion. He had lulls in his career. He sued his promoter, his manager. It just seemed like when he got his money, that was it. He got his money. He was happy, and good for him. Like, I'm glad he's financially set. Good for him. I'm just a dude on the internet. I'm happy for him. Like I'm glad he's riding off to the sunset. All I'm saying is, if I'm sitting there with the Hall of Fame vote, it's a definitive no.
Definitively?
But D-Style, you have to have the want to be great and the drive to separate yourself from your peers. He never did that.
Let me ask you this, Calix.
D-Style, he looked disinterested throughout his career. He actively ducked guys in his
Who did he duck?
D-Style. He was supposed to fight Regis Prograis last year. And what happened to that fight?
Okay, but he retired though. Like that's a retired. Like
that's what I'm saying though. Like it never.
I think be better question.
His career went like this. It looked like it was taking off, and then it just it was.
Let me ask you a hypothetical, Calix. If he fought Lomachenko and beat Lomachenko decisively, would that sway you a little bit?
Yeah, because that's the career-defining win.
That's all he would need. Right? He would need that one fight, like a.
Why decisively beat? What's why can't he beat him by split decision?
No, but here's the thing too: is
I have a high bar.
I think we need to raise our bar on Hall of Fame, right?
Let's take Gennady out then. Let's take Gennady out.
Can't keep going. Can't keep falling back on this Gennady thing. Genndy's an outlier.
Yeah, Gennady is an outlier, and that's what I'm saying. D-Style. At least Gennady gave us the moments, right? He had 3 or 4 fight of the year performances. All right,
he lost those fights,
right? But D-Style, what did Mikey Garcia give us? Did he ever give you that moment like, oh
yes?
Yeah. Are you going to be talking to your?
I thought he looked phenomenal in the Orlando
30 years from now about Mikey Garcia, but you will be about Arturo Gatti. Not Mikey Garcia.
Arturo Gatti's immortal, and I'll tell you why. And Callis can probably.
I love Gatti, but I don't mind Gatti in the Hall of Fame.
Let me get this in. This is a big one. Arturo Gatti is immortal, and I'll tell you why.
Damn.
Because how many times you hear someone make a comparison to a fight? Oh, this can be another Gatti Ward type fight. No one says this could be another
that fight. Like Mickey Ward won that fight,
and D-Style. Jim Lampley had a Arturo Gatti.
Gatti won the other 2.
How many Mikey Garcia lists are there out there? 0.
I mean,
as many as career-defining victories from Mikey Garcia.
Let me say this. I think you guys are taking the fame part of Hall of Fame literal. Like I think what it is. So like accolades wise, like when on paper he's Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Who? Like point blank, Mikey
Garcia.
So does Broner get in?
He's not.
Yes,
no
Joe.
Way.
Probably. When you get to me, Joe, when you get to me, yes, I'm going to make the case that Adrian Broner is likely also Hall of Fame.
Okay, Dave.
Four
Wait, I wanna
division
hear this.
champion. Listen, their careers mirror each other. They're a victim of their own financial success. Both of these guys, Adrian Broner and Mikey Garcia, 4 division champions, literally the same weight classes, both of them prime of their career, 135-pound divisions. Mikey somehow managed to avoid a fight with Lomachenko, and Adrian's best win was Antonio DeMarco at 135, but they still managed to have the marketing team behind them get them 4 different division championships. So based on merit alone, like D-Styles is saying, I have to say yes. Yes, they both will be Hall of Fame. Listen, there's a really low bar. There's a really low bar.
Smart guy. He's just a smart dude. You know what I mean? I'm saying.
Joe, check this out. Why did, like, last year, the Boxing Writers Hall of Fame inducted a woman known as the female Muhammad Ali, and they didn't bother to check that her fight record was falsified, and she was inducted.
Okay, he's dropping gems today. He's dropping gems.
Go check that out. This woman falsified her box record. Okay, they have no actual record that she won the fights, and yet the boxing writers inducted her. Okay, none of us on this panel will ever be, unfortunately, inducted. We're never going to be in the Boxing Writers Association. I don't think we will. I wish any of us could, but we won't get to make that vote. But based on merit alone, I have to say,
get Lukey
Mikey Garcia.
Lukey might get
hopefully Lukey, one of us, please.
I think Lukey has the potential to get it.
I hope so.
I don't think so because I don't really fuck with people like that. But I appreciate it.
We're gonna get to Lukey. We're gonna get
history. History in the books will be the ultimate guide.
The Vince Carter article is on point too. But can I rebuttal?
Go ahead, finish, Calix. We cut you off. I'm sorry, brother.
This 4 division champion thing, it has to stop. Like Tank is a 3 division champion. Tank is
not. He has Reggie belts. So those don't count.
Okay, but he's still real. But it doesn't matter. Because
it does matter.
No, but it does matter for us. But what I'm saying is, a great point was just made that the Boxing Writers Association of America just inducted a woman into the Hall of Fame who had a falsified record. Okay, so that's who we're dealing with here. Okay, also, Showtime is promoting him actively as a 3 division champ. You have writers in the Hall of Fame. Al Bernstein is in the Hall of Fame. He's promoting Tank as a 3 division champion.
Al doesn't say it, though. Al doesn't say it. I haven't heard
Al does say it. He's saying it.
What about
not Al?
They said Golovkin broke Hopkins' record, and they
but not Al. Like Al didn't say that. But
it's HBO.
But what I'm saying is there were people in the Hall of Fame.
I'm going to defend Al. I'm going to defend him.
But HBO said Golovkin broke Hopkins' record.
He didn't, but
okay.
They said it though.
Okay, and that adds to my point. ESPN also promoted Cambosos as undisputed champion. Okay, so what I'm saying is they actively lie, or they actively either lie or they believe this stuff. So what I'm saying is Adrian Broner, a 4 division champion. When I hear this, okay, when we're comparing them to fighters of back then, right? How many divisional championships would have Adrian Broner had if he was fighting in the 40s, 50s, 60s? How many? D-Style?
Maybe not even.
He fought at 126, 131.
What divisions are we talking about? I'm not calling them like all-time greats. I'm just saying that they belong in the Hall of Fame. Like
there is no way. 0%. There's
Adrian
Broner.
Okay, would have Gennady been a champion in the 50s? Where there was only one champion?
D-Style. I've said multiple times, Arturo Gatti is not a great fighter all time. He's not. It's
possible that Trinidad and De La Hoya wouldn't have been the champion in one.
You can get voted in if you were in great fights.
Okay, I'm not against that either. Like, believe me, I'm okay with it. But he's got the accolades.
There's no way. Mikey Garcia has the accolades for Hall of Fame, or Adrian Broner definitively not. No way Adrian Broner gets in the Hall of Fame. And then Mikey Garcia, the bar has to raise. There is nothing that Mikey Garcia did to separate himself from other great fighters of this era. And the other problem with this conversation is this is being had in a vacuum. So we're saying Mikey Garcia is a future Hall of Famer, but none of us have seen a list because the Boxing Writers Association of America, they get a list of fighters that you put in. So in this past class, you had great fighters who did not get in because you can only vote for a certain amount of fighters to get in. 3 modern era fighters got in a long list of fighters. So what I'm saying is if you put Mikey Garcia on this list, he's not top 10 on the past list that they just rolled out.
Okay, I get that, Cal. I'm not saying he'll be first ballot. You know what I mean? But I think it's
and he's
possible
not going to be 10th ballot. And he shouldn't be 15th ballot.
let's let Dave finish up real quick. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, there are fans that are going to want to advocate that there should be. And I see people arguing about where's the bar, right? But what about guys like Gennady? I think you bring up a great point. I'd like to see people be allowed, at least nominated, for being performance of the year. You know, Gennady was in fight of the year multiple times. That has to mean something. It's ingrained in the memory of boxing fans.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right, let me get to this super chat here. He says, Nando Lama says, I don't think Loma is a Hall of Famer yet either. Those losses and no historic win, I don't count amateurs. Baker Mayfield ain't a pro Hall of Famer for his Heisman. Well, they do count.
But he's a 3-division champion on top of the amateur, though.
But they do count the amateurs when they think about Hall of Fame because it's boxing as a whole. It's not the pro boxing Hall of Fame.
We finally agree on some.
So let me get to this other super chat here by Chauncey Perez. It says, like Floyd, Mikey is a boxing con man. He bamboozled the Mexican fan base into thinking he was a dude. Well, he ain't and never was. I agree with Calix. We need to hold the Hall of Fame at a higher standard. Wow.
You're gonna do me like that, huh, Chauncey Perez?
You know what the problem is too is, and D-Style and I have talked about this ad nauseum for a decade at this point, and I think we have a disagreement on this. Is I understand there are different titles as to non-participants and all that stuff, but I just think when you let Sylvester Stallone in, when you let the ring announcer in, I just think it cheapens it. I think you have to have something else except
it's different. Those are different categories, though. Like
I don't like the categories. Is what
should those categories even be on the list? Is what Calix is saying. And I agree with them. But if you want to have a Hollywood boxing Hall of Fame, then separate it from the.
That's what it is. It's a different wing. That's what it is.
Put it in a different city. I want to know a whole different city.
Yeah, get it out of here.
Oh, you want? Come on,
get it out of here.
But I agree with that because imagine if one of us go in the Hall of Fame and then we're next to Muhammad Ali. It looks goofy if we're talking about this and Ali did what Ali did.
Where does it stop? Are we going to stop putting writers in the Hall of Fame too?
I think so. They should be in the Writer Hall of Fame, or there should be because there should be a distinction because fighters can die in the ring. So I think there should be some sort of distinction because it doesn't take that much to talk about boxing. That's a passion. There should be more for a fighter because they put so much of their self and they give up so much of themselves for the sport. It's like someone that writes about war probably doesn't get commemorated as much as a soldier that fought at war. That's like the way I look at this, right?
Yeah.
And I'll add to that, Lukey. There are active writers, active commentators, active ring announcers who are in the Hall of Fame. A fighter has to retire, and then I think, wait, what is it now? 3 years? It used to be 5 years until they're on the list to get into the Hall of Fame. It's absurd.
Look, I agree. Look, I agree that obviously the fighter should be the top priority. I agree with all that. But they're already doing what you guys are saying they should do. That they're different wings.
No, I want it. I want it completely something completely different.
Like you don't think Michael Buffer should be in the Boxing Hall of Fame?
No.
For
what? Michael Buffer should be in the Boxing Ring Announcer Hall of Fame.
But they're not going to make where are they going to put that building? There's going to be like 3 dudes there. Like, come on, what's going on?
It could be with the Boxing Writers Hall of Fame. It could be the ring announcer and the writers and
what are these? Just like a separate building next to it. You know
Just call it a boxing non-participant Hall of Fame. I don't want to hear boxing Hall of Fame non-participant. It seems It seems like I'm nitpicking D-Style, but it matters. And put it in a different vicinity.
It's a different wing. Like we had boxing fans that believed the Rocky Balboa was in the Fighters Hall of Fame. He wasn't. Right? It was Sylvester Stallone as a screenwriter in a celebrity wing.
I still can't believe I still can't get over you have Mikey Garcia in the Hall of Fame. I don't.
Well, Mike Garcia put his life on the line. He was a gladiator. Isn't that what you want in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, but then you got to put every fighter in the Hall of Fame. You're gonna you're gonna put Mark Magsayo in the Hall of Fame just because.
Let me ask you this: would anyone vote Mike Coppinger into the Hall of Fame for journalism?
I mean, if he has a long career and he's known and like, here's what Hall of Fame is to me. This is my opinion. If you were to write, like, if every year was a chapter, right? Okay, if you can't write that chapter without mentioning that person, in my opinion, that makes him Hall of Fame.
I mean, boxing is so janky. If you really want to be in the Hall of Fame and you write about it, they should just let you in at this point. They'd be like, you know what, bro?
You know what?
You've been following for 20 years. We'll just put your name. You got to give us $1,000. We'll put you on the wall. Bring your parents. I mean, that's where we're going, right?
Lukey, somebody just made a joke in the chat that ES News is going in the Hall of Fame. I'm telling you, 20 years from now, Ellie Sekbak will be in the Boxing Hall of Fame.
He'll be in there, too.
He's going to be in there.
He'll be in there.
Jesus Christ.
He'll be in there.
We probably all will because they're going to run out of people.
I was one of the first dudes here on YouTube. Put me. No, it's fine.
He'll be in there asking people what their favorite color is on the podium. Fucking goofball. All right, let's get to the next topic here. Canelo, Alvarez, Gennady, Golovkin had a couple press conferences, and they were kind of eventful. They were kind of heated. Canelo, I have to say, I got to give him credit. He's really turned into a good shit talker. He's really good at marketing the fight. Now,
motherfucker.
Before it was just him, just the name and the look, and obviously the fighting ability. But now he's actually talking these fights up, and I got to give him a lot of credit. And I have to say, I was down on this fight. I wasn't excited about it. But after these couple press conferences, I'm starting to get excited for this fight. I'm starting to get, my interest has started to peak up a little bit here. I'm going to go to you, Calix. What did you think of these press conferences? And what did you take away from them? And do you think this adds to the fight? Do you think because of this press tour, they're going to get a lot of following behind this fight?
Yes, we're 2.5 months out, and there's already buzz. And I said, I this is the biggest American fight this year as far as the live gate is going to do, the pay-per-view numbers is going to do. And I just think they get on each other's nerves. It's like, you ever seen the movie Step Brothers with Will Ferrell and the other guy, and they're in the room right next to each other? I just think they're close to each other. They get on each other's nerves. They're under each other's skin. And I think Canelo is tired of the passive-aggressive energy that Golovkin is throwing his way. He continues to take little shots at him, like Ryan Garcia is right now as well. And Canelo is irritated by it. And Canelo even admitted it yesterday. Somebody asked him, were you trying to get Golovkin to make a move, like take a shot at you or something like that? And he's like, yes, I was. So I think they're both under each other's skin. You're starting to see how big the fight's going to be. They're both at Yankee Stadium at home plate. And yeah, I think it's big. And I love the trash talk. Both guys are underrated trash talkers. Like for two guys who English is their second language, they're both underrated trash talkers because Golovkin does it in a slick way. He just takes little shots and then he's like, whoa, I didn't say anything. Why you get mad at me? Canelo gets mad at him. He takes a little slick shot again. Canelo gets mad. He's like, what? Why is he mad at me? Why is he calling me an a-hole? Because you are an a-hole. So I like the energy back and forth. I like both fighters. So for me, it's great. It's a win-win. And I think we're going to have a great fight.
Dave, what are your thoughts, man? You think that this fight is starting to get some attention behind it? And what are your thoughts on these two press conferences?
I'm really enjoying the press conferences, but I was always in full support of having a conclusion and a trilogy. I wanted to see this fight. I'm one of the few people who've been advocating it on my show for a long time that I needed to see this come to a conclusion. So one of the funniest things that I saw this week with Gennady Golovkin was to paraphrase him, I think he said something like, I feel sorry for Canelo because for me, it's just a sport. Right. And I think like you guys are saying, is so subtle, passive aggressive shit talking. And with Canelo, he's got a lot to prove to the Mexican and Mexican-American fan base, man. He's coming off a big loss, right? All of a sudden he looks like somebody who's completely beatable, right? And we're kind of sleeping on him. Where's Canelo's energy? Is Canelo's energy on Ryan Garcia and all these other arguments he's getting into in social media? For Canelo, I really think he may get distracted in the build-up to this fight with everybody coming at him from all angles. We expect him to be a fighter and have retorts and can talk shit back to everybody who's coming at him. But I think he needs to focus on Gennady Golovkin because I like the fact that Gennady Golovkin is cool and collective. I like that. I think that energy might hurt him in this final matchup. I'm very excited. And the way I'm hearing the buzz and my Vegas friends, man, these nosebleeds went for $700. That tells you they know $700 for nosebleeds. There's a market demand. The casinos, hotels are booking up fast. I think it's going to be a sensational finale to their trilogy and one for the books. One for the books.
Thank you so much. Nando Lama says, best real bad blood fight since De La Hoya Vargas. I love it. Yeah, I can agree with that, man. I can agree with that. Lukey, are you getting more excited for this fight now that we have 2 press conferences already in the books? And what were your thoughts on those press conferences?
I mean, and I know I'm supposed to be media, but I don't really watch the press conferences because it's always like, thank the sponsors, Amir, best training camp of my life. But I do like watching them face off with each other because they really hate each other. And it's really just makes me really happy because they try to be professional, but you can tell they just can't stand each other. My big takeaway is Golovkin looks so much bigger than Canelo in a weird way with the back definition. That really was jarring. And I can't shake the feeling that Golovkin has saved a small bit of himself to really try to have like a Marquez 3 or a Marquez Pacquiao 4 type performance. Because I think that a lot of people are like, oh, Canelo's going to stop him. But Canelo's at like the low end of his career right now. He's coming off a Bivol loss. There's a lot of doubt around his career. And basically now Golovkin's a trap fight. There's a lot of anticipation, a lot of big numbers, but a lot of people are showing up for the Canelo parade, right? It's supposed to be Canelo's ceremony. He beats Golovkin. I think this is going to be one of these fights where it's going to get more and more interesting as it gets closer, and it's very good for boxing.
D, you weren't against this fight. You had no problem with it from the beginning, but now that you've seen these press conferences, are you even more into this fight? Has this sparked your interest a little bit more?
Well, first of all, my shit is fucking. Hold on. Sorry. So anyway, look, here's what I want to say, man. Gennady Golovkin's gonna get fucked up. That's what's gonna happen. He's gonna get fucked up. He's gonna get his ass whooped, and he's gonna get stopped. He ain't gonna go over eight rounds. And let me just say that right now.
No shot.
Okay, you see, here's the difference between Golovkin and Canelo. Golovkin is playing the game like, yes, I'm a nice guy. Yes, absolutely, yes. That's what he's doing. Okay, big drama show. Yes, like that's what he's doing. He's like, you serious? You serious? Like you talk about that. Canelo is serious. Okay, Canelo Alvarez is being honest. He's not trying to play mind games. He's not throwing shots. He's just being honest. He's just saying, this motherfucker's an asshole. He acts one way in front of y'all, but he's another way behind the scenes. That's what he is, okay? That's what he's saying. And he's basically letting everybody know, I'm going to fuck this dude up, all right? First fight. Look, I know, I get it, okay? Like a lot of people most feel, I'll even say that Gennady Golovkin won. But he didn't win. It was a fucking draw, okay? Okay, like you could cry about it. Golovkin fans are still crying about it. He should have won. It should be a win. Or whatever it is. He didn't do enough. He just didn't, okay? And the fact is, plenty of smart boxing minds actually did have it a draw, okay? That's number one. Second, the second fight, he beat up Gennady Golovkin. He backed him up, Okay, everybody said that Canelo was running too much in the first fight, while he made his ass back up after he said, and here's the part where the 10-point must system, it's debatable. It was close. I get all that. I'm not debating the 10-point, how you score it. I'm talking about man-to-man, mano-y-mano. When a dude tells you, "Oh, yes, I Mexican style. You didn't fight me Mexican style. You should have came to me." And when it came to you, you fucking ran. You fucking piece of shit.
Whoa!
You fucking ran. You ran from Canelo, a smaller man who moved out to fight you. All right, that's the reality. Canelo starts at 154. He actually started as a fucking welterweight. Right, or probably lighter than that. Well, whatever he started at the beginning of his career. Okay, but this dude, and then we have people crying, like, "Oh, but he's gonna make a move up. Golovkin's such a little dude. Canelo's gonna make him. He always gets his way. He's making a move up. Why doesn't Canelo move down? He can't move up one fucking weight class. This dude ain't that dude or what?" Manny Pacquiao was 42 years old in his fucking 6th, 7th weight class. All right, 42. Now people gave Ugas all types of credit for that win. So you better line yourselves up to give Canelo all types of credit when he knocks out this 40-year-old fucking carcass. Okay, and he takes him out of this fucking sport. That's what he's gonna do. Canelo's gonna dominate. Canelo's gonna knock him out. I'm gonna say it right now. It ain't gonna be close. He's gonna fuck this dude up. That's what's gonna happen.
Let me ask you a question, D-Style. If the fight turns out to be like the first two and it's another close competitive fight and Canelo does win, will he be open to criticism and will it be warranted and will his stock go down?
He'll have to be open to criticism. He'll have to be.
Yeah.
Period.
Will his stock
I
go
will say you had a close fight with Golovkin? What the fuck is this? Right? Like that's what I will say.
Why?
Like if it's close, I'm just gonna give it to Golovkin. I'm not even gonna score it. It's close. Golovkin wins. If it's close.
Why though?
Because it ain't gonna be close.
And what else?
I'm just letting you guys know that he's gonna beat Golovkin. And then he's not going to get, maybe Calix will give him credit, or maybe you guys, but most people aren't going to give it. You know he ain't going to get credit. You know
he beats Golovkin, he deserves all the credit.
I agree with you, but people, we live in a world where people are ready to give Spence all types of credit if he beat a 42-year-old Manny Pacquiao who's in the 6th or 7th fucking division, but they're not going to be willing to give Canelo for beating a 40-year-old in his 2nd division. All right, that's just a fucking reality. That's the world we live in. All right, Canelo needs to dominate. He needs to dominate because that's the standard people have put. Okay, and the reality is he's putting that. Canelo himself said after the Murata fight, he ain't that good. I'm not impressed. These are the words of Canelo. All right, Canelo put that standard. So I'm expecting him, and I honestly do believe he's going to dominate this fight. He's going to knock this dude out.
It's always different standards for Canelo. He's held to a higher standard. So people tell on themselves, right? Even the people that like to hate on Canelo, they tell on themselves because they hold him to higher standards. But I want to bring up this point real quick, B.
Go ahead.
How crazy would it be? And look, I just had my half-year awards, and Bam was clearly the fighter of the half year so far. And he's got the pole position. It's going to be tough to beat him, especially if he fights 4 times this year. But let's say Spence beats Crawford and he has wins against Ugas and Crawford. That's strong. But another guy you have to consider is if Golovkin he already unified against Murata in Japan. If he were to win against Canelo and become undisputed at 168 after unifying at 160 at 40 years old, Golovkin is then 2022 Fighter of the Year. Yes. And I want to see Dragon Styles' reaction to that if that happens.
Yes. And what if he fights Bivol after? What if he fights Bivol? He says, you know what? I want to be Boxer of the Year. I'm going to fight Bivol.
Well, Calix, I got to ask you the same question as D-Style. So if the scores are red, we're gonna go to the scorecards. 115 to 113. Canelo 115, 113, Canelo. 114, 114. And the winner by majority decision, Canelo Alvarez. What is your thoughts going to be after that, if that is the case? Do you think his stock goes down, and will that be kind of a blemish in your eyes?
No, because this is what I'm expecting.
So you're expecting another close fight.
I've been saying it, been shouting it from the mountaintops for months now.
You're taking the over.
Yes, and he's not stopping Golovkin, and Golovkin's not stopping Canelo. It's not happening, Beeb. It's not
100.
happening.
I agree with Calix.
It's going to happen.
No stopping.
And if these guys fight 10 times, it's going to be 10 close decision fights. Now, D-Style did bring up a good point the other day, though, is Marquez finally got to Pacquiao's chin after 42 rounds. So there does come a point, like if you're landing big shots on somebody, eventually there's going to be give, right? So, yeah, I can see that. But these two guys have granite chins, and they're made, the boxing gods made these two guys for each other. They haven't been able to separate themselves from each other, and I don't think they will in the third fight either. I'm expecting another close fight. If Canelo wins by close decision, I give him full credit as a great win and winning the trilogy. Full credit here.
What's the something else, Lukey? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just talking shit, but or crap. But my other thing I was gonna say is that like Golovkin hasn't really slowed down. Like he's just fought guys that really don't seem like they interest him. But like he lost to Canelo in a close fight, and people are acting like he's a real washed up fighter. He's older, but I've never seen his skill set greatly diminish. Against Murata, it looked like he knew what he had to do when he wanted to start slow because of Canelo fights on the table. I don't buy that he's some greatly diminished fighter. He's still a really, really dangerous, hard-hitting, elite fighter.
What about the Derevyanchenko fight? That he looked like he slowed down a step there, and he did get off to kind of a slow start against Murata.
And Derevyanchenko's a kind of a poor man's Canelo.
I was around that camp, so I take a little bit of credit along with Rozier and Gary Starks. You know, I was hanging around, so that might be the Lukey rub.
I actually thought Derevyanchenko won that fight. So I scored it for Derevyanchenko.
It was close, and Danny Jacobs' fight was close, but
I
thought he won those fights. I thought he won those fights close, and those are underrated wins.
I had Jacobs
beating
multiple,
like several top 10 middleweight wins, and you have to add to that lineal champions were staying away from him for years.
Who? Whoa! Look. I didn't say
Sergio Martinez. Sergio
Martinez did not. No, hold on. Sergio Martinez did not avoid Gennady Golovkin. That is a myth. That is a bunch of horror. I'm sorry. I just got to be honest. Sergio Martinez.
He hates when you say this.
He was the lineal champion of the world. We all agree with this, right?
Correct.
Okay. When Sergio Martinez fought Murray was at that time more world renowned than fucking Golovkin.
No way.
And that's the fight. But hold on. And before that, the Chavez Jr. fight, he fucked up his knee. He fucked it up further in the Murray fight. Okay. The only time the Gennady Golovkin name came up when this dude was a one-legged dude, and everybody fucking knows it. Okay. And that's the reason that Cotto finally fought him. Right. So that just point, and who would blame him for taking the Cotto fight over the Gennady Golovkin fight? Who had Gennady Golovkin fight? Who? Kasim Uma? Because he fought a Kasim Uma coming off like 7 straight losses, and somehow he got a title shot and he got to fight him. Like somehow,
that was a great win.
Come on. Like this was a dude with a Reggie belt who hadn't fought anybody, and when he became known and people were like aware of him, Martinez was already a one-legged fighter, brother.
Well, he was Dmitry Pirog. Golovkin is who Pirog was supposed to be. And then Pirog got injured, and then he had that close fight. And then Golovkin beat the Polish fighter, and he had an entertaining style. And HBO was like, oh, a guy that knocks people out, let's put money behind him. Like, Golovkin was not really supposed to be something. He just was entertaining and willing to fight often. And that's where it kind of came from.
I'll tell you what lineal champion did duck him. Miguel Cotto.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dude that wanted no part of Gennady.
Didn't Miguel Cotto, my guy, drop a belt?
Yes.
To stay away from. Didn't Canelo drop a belt there?
Yeah, he did. Canelo aged
Sergio
out.
Martinez never avoided him, though.
Mm-hmm.
I will take that to the grave.
All I'm saying, D-Style, fair enough. Sergio Martinez late in his career, fair enough. All I'm saying, though, is there were 3 lineal champions who did not face him when he was a top 5 middleweight.
And then, like, okay, I get it. Like, people were mad because Canelo didn't fight him when they wanted Canelo to fight him, right? But he still fought him. He fought him twice.
Yep.
Like, he did fight him. Oh, he aged him out. Like, so it's Canelo's fault that the dude's older? Like, a fighter can move his career at the pace of the older fighter.
Just like Jake Paul, right? You just move at your own speed.
You move it at your own speed.
Just like Jake Paul, right?
That's it. That's it. So speaking of Jake Paul type of fights, on FightHype.com, it was written and announced that Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor are in talks for a rematch. Can they sell a rematch? Would this fight actually sell? Would it do even 1 million pay-per-view buys? And would anyone really, really be interested in it? And I know that Dana White tried to put the kibosh on this and said it was all a rumor, but he said that about the first one too. He said the first one would never happen, and it did. So could this fight happen? And would there be a public interest for it? Let me start with you, Lukey.
I mean, where there's a will and there's a way, and by a will, I mean like when you die, a will. I mean money. Yeah, I mean, this will probably happen. Do I care? No. But if a bunch of people want to come over to my house and I'll cook food, I make a really good Philly cheesesteak. I make a lot of really good food. I love to cook. You know, if you guys are around, I can cook for you. You know, I love those things. I mean, just if they make the fight, put some people I want to see on the undercard. You know, how about I'll matchmake right now. Jose Valenzuela versus Kevin Johnson. That would be a good, interesting fight to see where Valenzuela fits in the division. Let's get Isaac Cruz against Frank Martin on that undercard. Let's put some of those type of fights and see these two guys at the end. Is it the most exciting? No, but they're famous. So we'll put the famous guys on at the end, but hopefully it could be like a 5 or 6 fight card of emerging fighters where someone could maybe launch.
Dave, do you think this fight could happen? And if it did happen, would it be a fraction of what the first fight did? Would it do numbers? Again?
I think for sure it's going to happen. I think it's very likely it's going to happen, actually. But is it going to be any good? I mean, the guy just shattered his leg in half, didn't he? The MMA fighter.
Well, that's why they're going to fight him.
Will it be remotely interesting? No, but I'm already seeing chatter about adding, some very interesting fights to the undercard. Even I thought I saw something about Gervonta Tank Davis being on the undercard.
Wow.
So if they do that angle and get some of those fighters like Lukey was alluding to, I think it will be marketable. He's proven that time and time and again that he can sell a fight and draw a pay-per-view crowd. So it probably will be a pay-per-view, but I doubt the success will be close to what the very first one was. I mean, there was some real appeal between let's finally get a UFC champion and boxing's biggest star. But I think that appeal is long gone now with all these celebrity circus fights that we've seen and the whole YouTube fight scene and the Jake Paul that we just talked about. I think a little bit of that appeal is now gone.
Yeah. Would you buy it, Dave?
No, I won't buy it.
I love it. Put him on the spot. Thank you, D-Style. He says, jab the like button. Yes, everybody, please jab the like button, share the video, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Calix, would this be on your pay-per-view calendar, brother?
No. And look, Beeb, what's Mayweather's official record in the Habib household?
Oh, he's got one loss. He's 50-1. He lost to Logan Paul.
The better Paul.
That's
so
right.
no, it's not. I still haven't watched an exhibition match in my life, so no, it wouldn't be on mine. But it would be funny if Mayweather does this and then he says it's an official fight to add to his record, a rematch that nobody's calling for. But Shoeshine brought it up. It's like Conor McGregor just broke his leg in half, like he snapped it. So Conor McGregor is like a cockroach. He just keeps coming back. Like I haven't seen this guy has lost several fights now. Both he's lost in boxing and he's lost several fights now. And he just lost to the guy from my neck of the woods in Louisiana. I forgot the dude's name. I'm not a UFC fan, but he's lost several fights.
The Diamond. I forget his name too.
Did he lose to Robbie
Poirier,
Lawler or something? Oh, Dustin Poirier. Yeah.
So he's lost several fights in a row, I believe, in the octagon. So where is this demand coming from? Where's it coming from? The only way I would entertain it is if they do it on the helipad.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you. If they put it on the helipad, would you buy it?
I watched it if it's on the helipad. But they have to come in. They have to come in helicopters, though. They have to have ring entrances and on the helicopters. That's what I need to see.
I was just going to ask, did Dangerous Dawn take something out of Floyd? Because I think that fight might have taken a little bit off of his career because that looked very, very taxing.
Probably.
So if this is on the helipad, do you buy it?
No. But hold on. Well, the helipad, I got to think about it, right? Like, look, maybe they put in the middle of Jurassic Park. You got T-Rex and Gigantosaur fighting in the background. I don't know, something like that.
Put it in space. Put it in space.
Probably in space. Who knows? He might fight in space. Who fucking knows at this point? I just don't understand. Like, I got it. I didn't like it, but I understood it. 2017. You know what I mean? Like, Conor was knocking dudes out in 12 seconds and like in the UFC and whatever, right? But, dude, before Mayweather was saying, oh, Conor, he's a hell of a fighter. He's been beat in the UFC, but by submission. He's never been beat, like, standing up. Well, Poirier just, like, knocked him the fuck out, like, with his fist. Khabib landed a big right hand and took him, that part is done. You know, let me just give a quick shout out to Teddy Atlas. Okay?
Jesus Christ.
Who, after he beat Cowboy Cerrone, was coming off 3 straight losses by knockout, right? He was like, oh, yes. Conor, he's like Ali and Kobe and Jordan. He's like all the big names, like possible. He's like a flower that blooms with the sun. And like, even MMA fans were like, dude, he beat Cowboy Cerrone. Calm the fuck down. Okay, like what the fuck is going on over here? When MMA fans are telling you that, whoa, slow the fuck down, right? That tells you everything, right? But with that said, in all seriousness, this is honestly, I can't respect me. Like this is the serious side. I can't respect him if he fights Conor again in a boxing match. Like, dude, you're being a bully at this point. You know what I mean? How about Floyd? Like, it reminds me of like the Japanese fighter who was like a flyweight and he boxed him. Like, bro, you're a lot bigger than him and you're boxing him? Like what the fuck are you doing? Of course you knocked him out in the first round. Like, make it interesting. Let Conor throw elbows or something. Or, like, I don't know. Like, let him do something different. You know what I mean? Like, if you get in the clinch, let him, like, I don't know, do some shit. Like, allow dirty boxing or something like that.
Make it a cage match.
Yeah, to do something to make it interesting. Right? At least Fury is saying, I'll fight in Ghana, we'll do hybrid rules or some shit.
Fight to the death, maybe? Like a death match?
No, not a death match. Not that, but I'm just saying do something to make us
Fury is not. He's not doing a hybrid match. There's no way.
He said, no, like the compromise is we'll do with MMA gloves, which no commission on the planet's going to allow a boxing match with MMA gloves.
They should fight in the Kumite.
You know, I don't know. All I know is this, Floyd, I don't care that you're doing exhibitions. But leave Conor alone and stop begging Khabib to box you. Like that, it's embarrassing, bro. Like just like do an exhibition with De La Hoya or something. Or this is the funny part, and I'll end it with this. A couple months ago, Chavez Jr. had actually suggested to him, "Hey, let's just do a fun exhibition, and we'll do it for charity, right?" And they asked Mayweather about it. He's like, I don't know. I don't want to do that because that would ruin my legacy and ruin his legacy. And then he goes out to, like, fight a YouTuber. Like, dude, Like, well, you don't want to do it for charity or what? Like, what is it? You won't do an exhibition with Chavez Sr., right? But you're going to do one with fucking Conor McGregor. I mean, come on. Give me a break.
Do it because it was for charity. He's not going to do anything for free. You know what this reminds me of, and I hate to say this, when Joe Louis, had his tax problems, and he was doing these wrestling exhibitions, and he was like doing the reffing and stuff like that. Floyd is just doing so many of these back to back to back to back, so close together. It screams of something's wrong with his finances, and I know people like, oh, why do you care? Why do you care? I mean, it's just sad to see this situation. The guy that made so much, possibly having some issues. It just doesn't like this is unprecedented. When have we ever seen a boxer do this? Right? And if they're going to pay him to do it, then why shouldn't he do it? But isn't there other ways to make money? You say you have all these smart investments, then why can't you just live off your smart investments? I don't get it. It just, to me, it's a bad look. I'm just being honest, but anyway, everyone can have their own opinion on it.
For Conor too, no, right? Isn't it a bad look for Conor as well?
Yes and no, because Conor isn't doing it every other week like Floyd, and it would kind of be like a one-off for Conor.
And also, Conor is the one going into another world, right? He's going to boxing. Floyd's fighting MMA fighters in boxing, right? It's the same thing I say about Jake Paul. If Jake Paul wants to be taken seriously, he has to fight a boxer at some point. Not a basketball player, not an MMA fighter.
But Conor's got that.
Callie's just a smart guy. Have I said that yet? Like, he's just a smart.
What's Conor's whiskey called again? What's that whiskey he has?
Proper 12, and he sold 12. It.
But like, how do you like punch a dude like an old man in the face and he won't take a shot, and you're still like around? If also all bullshit aside, if Floyd did that, if Floyd punched an old man in the bar,
oh yeah, forget about it.
Because like this is great. Like Conor gets a lot of passes, bro. Like I'm just saying,
a lot,
yeah.
Like he threw, and we talked about this offline, baby. He threw a dolly into a fucking bus, and like there was a female fighter that her fight got canceled. She lost her payday. Like a dude got a glass in his eye. Like what are you doing?
That was disgraceful, man. That was disgraceful. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. And this is kind of weird to me that Eddie Hearn would even make a comparison, because I think this doesn't have to even really said, because they're both different fights. Why even compare the two? But he made a statement about Canelo-Golovkin 3, how it would be 10 times bigger than Spence Crawford. I don't. That's debatable whether it would be bigger. You can make an argument, but I think Spence Crawford will be a lot bigger than people think, in my opinion. I think it could come close to Canelo-Golovkin 3. And again, we haven't really seen impressive numbers on any of these fights on DAZN. Decent numbers, but not bigger numbers than from other outlets, right? So was this comment even necessary? And do you guys think that it's an accurate statement by Eddie Hearn? Let's start with you, D-Star.
Look, my issue with Eddie Hearn, right, is look, I get it. Like, let me defend him a little bit before I criticize him, just real quick. So, and this is not just with him. Anytime, and correct me if I'm wrong, anytime like a promoter is perceived or is the top promoter in boxing, right? All the other promoters are like mean girls. They all get together and they start going after him. You know what I mean? They all get together. They all attack the promoter on top, right? They don't even go like whatever it is. Lou DiBella has been quoted saying things like, well, I don't like what Aram is doing, but if I was in the same position, I would do the same thing. Then what are you criticizing then, right? So like that's the issue with Hearn right now. He's a top promoter at the moment. And all these, like Leonard Allerby and Aram, and they're all getting together like mean girls, right? And they're all agreeing with each other about Eddie Hearn, right? That's what they're doing. They're all like, let's go full-fledged attack on this dude. Look, Eddie Hearn, but with all that said, why bring up the Spence Crawford thing, right? If it has nothing to do with you, right? Spence Crawford would be a big fight for boxing. And if it's big for boxing, since you're in the boxing industry as a promoter, that would be good for you as well, right? Like, I think sometimes promoters don't think about that. They don't think about the big picture. They don't think about how it will benefit them as well. And I just think that Eddie Hearn gets carried away sometimes. And it's not the first time. He gets a little carried away with his kind of using other fights from other promoters or other examples to big himself or the fight he's promoting up. Right? That is the issue I have with Eddie Hearn. I think he needs to calm down. I think he needs to just focus on what he's doing. If other promoters are hating on you, don't worry about it. That means this means you're the dude on top, right? And that's all I have to say about it. I just think Eddie Hearn has to focus on what he's doing, and that's it.
Thank you so much. Corey Lee Boxing says, awesome show. It's Icy Sin, pound for pound, Usyk #1. All right. Calix, what are your thoughts on this whole statement? And, you know, I'm with D-Style. I don't believe in this subtract from others to add to yourself type equation. That's what I think this is. But what are your thoughts on this? And do you think he's right? I mean, is Golovkin Canelo 3 going to be a way bigger fight if that hypothetical fight with Crawford and Spence comes off?
Well, this is what they do, right? Ellerby's taking shots at Hearn. Hearn takes shots at Ellerby. Hearn actually makes a song. Pretty good song. He's got a pretty good singing voice at Ellerby. And then Aram's calling
sunshine when tanks gone.
Aram's calling the zone dead zone. This is what they do. It's what they've been doing since the beginning of time. As Bernard Hopkins called them, a necessary evil. But they take shots at each other. They try to keep the money in-house. Same thing with PBC. They do the same thing, call out names. So it's not surprising at all. But as far as the actual statement, I do believe Canelo-Golovkin's a bigger fight than Crawford-Spence monetarily. I don't think it's a more meaningful fight. I think Crawford-Spence for the boxing fans is a more meaningful fight. But 10 times bigger, that's absurd. That's just an absurd state. There's no way it's going to be 10 times bigger. I think the pay-per-view numbers will be somewhat close. As we're seeing with the ticket prices for the fight, live gate, I think it's going to be bigger. So I think it monetarily is going to be a bigger fight. 10 times, no, it's absurd. But Crawford-Spence, I think, will be the more meaningful fight at the end of the day when we look at these guys' legacies 10, 20 years down the line. But it is a big fight for Canelo and Golovkin, too, as well. Legacy-wise, they both have to win this fight for their legacy.
Yeah. Lukey, what are your thoughts on the statement, and do you think that it really even needed to be made?
I mean, that's what Eddie Hearn does. He just talks. Like he always says just stuff. Like he'll just say things and he'll be like, oh, man, I said too much, you know? But that's kind of his job. Promoters promote. Promoters talk too much. Errol Spence versus Crawford is the more relevant fight right now. Golovkin versus Canelo is the more famous fight because they've been around much longer. It's as simple as that. And whoever has dibs on whichever fight is going to tell you whichever side of the story benefits them. There's never going to be a promoter that's going to give you the full truth unless the full truth benefits them. So Eddie is only just speaking to what directly benefits him, as he should.
Gotcha. Dave, what are your thoughts on the statement, and is there any merit to that statement that Eddie Hearn made?
That's a fantastic statement. The funny shit is that he's actually giving you a quantifiable amount. He's saying that 10 times the revenue of a Errol Spence pay-per-view. I mean, that's funny. That's actually good. He's throwing shade at PBC and reminding the boxing audience that, listen, those guys can't make that fight happen, but I got something on deck ready to go that we're promoting right now, and it's September, and you want to watch it. So, kudos to Eddie Hearn for being a great promoter. The only thing that is 10 times bigger, okay, is a DAZN card versus Don King Promotions. That's definitely 10 times bigger. And with that being said, guys, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on the show, man. You guys can watch me on Mondays with Drew Evil, late on Mondays nights here on YouTube on the Shoe Shine. Thanks a lot, Pete, for having me. I got to
All right,
going,
Dave.
man.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you guys. Great show, guys. Later,
right, man. Catch up. All right, so I got a bonus topic here, and this is very interesting. I talked about this morning. Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, 2. Obviously, we know it's going to be on August 20th. It's going to be in Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia is saying that they have the television rights, and this fight is not part of Joshua's deal with DAZN. And it was reported that Joshua signed this big multi-million-dollar, multi-fight deal with DAZN. And I'm sitting here scratching my head saying, how could DAZN sign this deal with Joshua and not have this fight included in the deal? This is unprecedented to me. That this would be the equivalent of Mayweather Pacquiao being at, it was at the MGM Grand, and the MGM Grand saying, well, I don't want this fight on Showtime. I'm gonna choose where you're gonna broadcast it, and if you don't allow me to be able to choose, then I'm not gonna pay the site fee. So that's amazing to me, how Saudi is able to do this. And again, this is the government. It's not like anywhere else in the world where sports are separated from government. This is where the government controls the sport, right? This is going to be funded by the government. That's where the money's coming from. So I'd just like to get everyone's thoughts on this. And where do you think this fight is going to end up? There's also rumors that Saudi wanted it on Sky, and they didn't want it on DAZN. So I'm sure DAZN can still bid for the fight. But where do you think this fight ends up? And what are your thoughts on this whole situation? Was this a smart move for DAZN? This, once again, seems like another bad move from DAZN from a financial standpoint. I'll start with you, Calix.
I think he's looking long term. Same thing that happened with Canelo and Caleb Plant, right? They go over there to Showtime, and then Canelo comes back as the undisputed champion and comes right back to DAZN. So let's say Anthony Joshua wins this fight, and he comes back to DAZN as the heavyweight champion, since it looks like Tyson Fury is retired, not retired, and DAZN would be the front runner for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. And oh, by the way, DAZN is still in the running for this fight, right? They're still going to put up a bid. So it's not like DAZN doesn't have this fight. They're still in the running. And Eddie Hearn is still in the picture. He's over there promoting this fight. So he's getting something financially short-term out of this as well. So I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be in the boardroom when these conversations are going on. I just think that Eddie's looking long-term. He's got Canelo. He's got Anthony Joshua. He's got the two biggest stars in boxing. And, oh, by the way, whether DAZN is making good moves financially or not, I don't know. I'm not a boxing business guy. You're not going to come to my channel for that. But I like what DAZN is giving me. I think they've been the best app/network this year so far. They've given me the fight of the year so far. They've given me the fighter of the year so far. They've given me performance of the year so far. They've given me the big moments. They give me the big name fighters, and they give me the average fighters who are matched well. They give me female fights. They give me fights from the UK, fights from Scotland, fights from Japan, and fights from America. So I like what they've given me, quality-wise, content. I don't have buyer's remorse with my subscription. So that's all I can talk about as a fan. But financially, I don't know. I don't know how they're set. But I think I'm pretty sure they have a plan when it comes to this, and I think he's thinking long-term.
D, what do you think of this move? And what if Joshua loses? What does DAZN get out of this whole situation?
Well, you know what's funny? I kind of figured that this DAZN thing from the very beginning, the way they were marketing it, like, oh, only $9.99. we're going to kill pay-per-view. You know what I mean? But we're still going to pay these dudes millions upon millions of dollars, right? Like, it never sounded sustainable to me from the very beginning. Just objectively speaking. Not that I care, because I know what boxing fans like to say. What do you care? Just accept the fight. Okay, but I have to look at, as a boxing fan, I need to look at the future as well, because I care about boxing in the present and the future.
Sustainability.
Yeah, like I care about where the sport's going to be in 4 or 5 years. Like, I'm a long-term thinker. It's just by nature the way I think, right? The DAZN has been trying for years now to get a return on their investment, because ain't nobody just in this business to give away money, okay? At some point, they want to make profits. They don't just want to make up what they spent. They want to make beyond that. They want to make profits, right? And I see, like, with like Golovkin, like they paid him $20 million or whatever it was to fight Rolls. I could be wrong about that, but it was somewhere around that ballpark. You know, they paid Canelo all types of money. You know, one of those fights was fucking Yildirim, right? Like they paid like Danny Jacobs like $15 million or something crazy like that. Like, they were spending all types of money, and like when you crunch the numbers up, like it wasn't adding up, right? It's like, okay, you don't just have to break even. They're doing this to make profit. They're looking for a return in their investment. They're investing in AJ. And then you give possibly the biggest fight AJ will ever be in again, possibly, to the Saudis. And then they have to, like, be in the mix. Like, they have to, like, bid for this fight. That's crazy. And I don't know if that's a good move for Matchroom or Eddie Hearn. Like they've been waiting for their moment in the sun to get that money back. And they're going to make them pay more for this fight? I don't know if this is going to work out, man. Like, I'm going to say right now, I don't know if the DAZN's around in 2 years from now. I just don't. I don't think there's going to be a DAZN boxing platform. And the reason why, it's not because they're not good. It's not because they don't give us good fights. It's not any of that. It's because the investors are going to be like, yo, we invest all this money in this fucking sport, and we never get the return in our fucking investment. Like, we never get it. And we give them so much money to invest in them, they want more money in order to take on bigger fights. Like this sport is a lot to deal with for business people. And I know this for a fact, and I know this because of my previous job. Okay? Just you could take my word for it. You don't have to, whatever. But the reason boxing is no longer on HBO has nothing to do with because they were promoting too many Eastern Europeans or whatever stupid narrative you heard from Ego or some of the dumbasses on here. Okay, the reason is because AT&T acquired it, and the first thing they said was, why are we spending so much money on this shit when we spend X amount of millions of dollars for one fight, but we spend X amount on multiple episodes with multiple actors on Game of Thrones, and it gets like 20 times the ratings. Why are we spending so much money on this? Right? For whatever reason, it's just, boxing is a hard business. Like, people need to love it to be involved with it. And I don't know how much the business people and the investors at the DAZN love boxing. I pray they fucking love the sport. I hope they have a passion for it. Because if they don't, at some point, they're going to say, fuck this shit. It's too much. So we signed this fucker to a multi-fight deal, and then and then we got a bid for this fight? That's some bullshit, right? And by the way, that's why you're getting pay-per-view on the DAZN now. They want to return on their investment, people. That's the way it is. That's why Netflix is losing money and they're increasing their fucking prices, because they want to return on their investment. That's the world. That's where we live. And that's that. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is there's pros and cons to it. You have another platform to watch the sport on, but the con is if they do fold, where are all these fighters going to go? Because there is no more HBO now. Will another platform come about? Who knows? But Lukey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you ever heard of a situation where a venue or an area or country, whatever, would pay the rights to the fight, have it staged there, and determine who's going to broadcast it? I've never heard of this before. Have you ever heard of a situation like this before?
Well, I have so many uninteresting opinions to share, so I'm so excited. So I think the big thing to start with is Saudi Arabia and MBS. If people are unaware, MBS is making a big political capital push into sports. So he's buying up F1, golf. And the big thing is, hey, we don't castrate gay people. We don't relegate women's rights. We're decent people that should be financial investors because we have a ton of money from oil. And I think the other issue there is oil might not be the sustainable, rich making currency, the economic booster 100 years from now. Things might go to other resources. So I think they're trying to not just invest it in a Machiavellian way as a political capital to enter into exchanges. They're trying to now create new massive streams of revenue. I think the big issue with this is I think the money offered probably was so ridiculously good. Like, I'll give you an example. I heard that Phil Mickelson, a golfer, is about to make $150 million to play golf in a very lax schedule.
250,
right? So it's even more ridiculous, right? So now imagine a heavyweight fight that has relevancy. What do you think realistic? Like, they'll give us the numbers. They'll be like, oh, it's this number, that number. But realistically, it had to be so much money. People didn't really read the contracts, if this is true. It was so much money. Someone said, oh, let's just do it because it was just too much money. It's like, we can't miss out on this. Even if it's a boo-boo, we can pay everybody because it's a ridiculous sum of money. Now, I think the bigger issue I have is with DAZN, it feels like their model of business was a loss leader. And I think a great example of a loss leader, for those that are unaware of that, is the hot dog from Costco. It's a $1.50 hot dog that actually loses money. But by getting people into Costco, the investment is you go to Costco, you're going to spend money in Costco. We're going to make the hot dog loss on the investment that you go in and buy something. You see that a lot of times at casinos. They'll comp you a room if you're known to spend money because you're going to spend the money back. I think DAZN built on the model. If we go to the analytics and build up famous names and famous fighters and trending fighters, that even if we overspend, people will come because we're going to be the boxing channel. The problem is boxing is one of these sports where people never want to pay. The fighters never want to pay trainers. The fans never want to pay for the most part to go to fights. And that is the catch-22 with boxing is it's a sport where for whatever reason it is, we're not all fans are all in on every fighter. They're not all in on boxing like some fans are all in on soccer or all in on basketball. We're very selective with who we like, right? So someone might like Canelo, but they might not want to watch Golovkin because they just don't feel personally attached. And I think DAZN found out that boxing isn't just about putting on the good fights. It's about the political capital and leverage. And I think though DAZN has put forth great products, they've also been extremely arrogant. And I don't think they've respected boxing people who have been lifers the way that those people wanted to be respected. And I think that they've encountered a lot of resistance that have hurt them in the industry, basically because they did not, in my opinion, entertain or respect those that came before them. So it's going to be interesting because I'm reading this Financial Times article and it said they have a $4.3 billion refinancing from Len Blavatnik's, Access Investments or something. So they're refinancing. It looks like they have probably a 5-year window to make this successful. I think the other thing is, I think Len Blavatnik is friends with Putin. Obviously, he's in Russia. The depletion of money in Russia, how does that affect DAZN? Because if that's their financial backing and their main backing, this Ukraine-Russia war will probably actually add more strain on that network moving forward.
But the ruble's up right now.
It is, right?
Yeah, it's up. So
a couple points.
Go ahead, Callis.
So B, put yourself in Hearn's situation. Some Saudis who don't need to make money on the fight. This is a hobby to them, right? They throw $80 million site fee at your fighter. Say split it 40-40. Do you hold your fighter back from making $40 million that he would not make either? Even if you're not guaranteed, you're not guaranteed to actually be the promoter for the fight. Can you still, with good conscience, hold your fighter back from making $40 million? You can't. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
Hearn's still going to be the promoter. He's still going to get paid. Fighters are still going to get paid. I'm looking at it from the DAZN's perspective. Like they seem like the odd man out here. But yeah, that is one good thing about Hearn. Like if he had no problem saying to Devin Haney, go fight on Top Rank because that's the only way you're going to be undisputed.
Same thing with Canelo going
Same
to fight
with Canelo. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is,
all the credit in the world for him to do.
If you're a big name fighter out there, don't you respect that and say,
I do.
I'm more attracted to that than Bob Arum locking me down to fight a guy, a mandatory in October instead of going straight to undisputed.
I agree. Yeah.
Don't you respect that more?
Of course. Yeah.
So it's that, and I've been hearing for a decade that PBC is going under. So I'm just like, I'm numb to this whole, these people are about to go under. The zone's about to go under. I'm numb to it now. I've been hearing this since 2012, 2013 about PBC running out of money, and they find more money. And I think Eddie Hearn just received an offer for $75 million for somebody to buy 25% of his company. So
yeah, he's going
I
to
think
sell
the money
shares,
is going to come, and they're going to be fine. That's how I feel.
The only thing I'll say is that there's been, like, I know Ariel Helwani on the show. He had somebody, an executive from the Zone, who was speaking a lot of what I said, like that they had invested in a lot of fighters and they weren't getting the return in their investment. That's already a red flag to me.
Well, Joe Murkowski from DAZN's already complaining. He's like saying, why is Eddie shopping these fights around to other platforms? He's already complained about that. Eddie's not doing. I mean, Eddie's going to be fine. The fight is going to be fine. But I'm just thinking about DAZN, and even if DAZN does fail or whatever, Sky would welcome Matchroom back with open arms. There's no question.
As would ESPN Plus, as would Paramount, as would all these other streaming platforms. So honestly, Matchroom is in a great situation.
They really are. Yeah.
If DAZN's gone, Showtime, Paramount, Disney Plus, any network,
They could say whatever they want about Eddie Hearn. He built himself a nice little stable of fighters. Really has.
And at the end of the day, I just want to see the good fights. I don't care where it's coming from.
And I have to say, as a boxing fan, I don't have many complaints this year. I think we had a great year, and I think boxing is in a really good place. And people talk about how boxing is dying, this, that, and the third. I've never seen more money in the sport now than ever before. I just never have. Everyone's getting paid now. A lot of guys are getting paid now.
Everybody's getting paid. The money has to be coming from somewhere.
Yeah. So there is.
I just keep hearing people are bleeding money. Where is it going? Where is it going?
Well, again, a lot of rich people are investing in the sport, so there's got to be a reason for it.
And the richest people I know are always filing bankruptcy, and they still have a ton of money. So like that's another thing too, is what people say they have and what they really have are often two different numbers, because a lot of times the richer you are, the less taxes you want to pay.
Yeah, and a lot of people they have a lot of assets, but they're not liquid. They have their money tied up in assets, like real estate.
Like Floyd.
Yeah, like Floyd. Floyd's not liquid.
He's not liquid. He's got assets.
And
I still can't believe D-Style thinks Mikey Garcia is a Hall of Fame fighter.
Oh shit!
He's got the stats.
We gotta have a separate debate.
He's more of a Hall of Famer. Gennady Golovkin.
We gotta have a separate debate on this.
Like I would vote Mikey before. Like if I was in a sheet of paper and I was marking them down, and Gennady Golovkin and Mikey were the last two names, I will mark Mikey Garcia.
Oh,
crazy, man! I vote him in too, man. I vote him in.
He's a great fighter. I get where you're coming from. I'd vote him in, but it does feel like he left some meat on the bone. Like it felt like he could have been one of the greats of his era.
I was very, very disappointed he didn't fight Lomachenko. I really wanted to see that fight. That's my
do
one.
pro grade too.
That's
Every
my
weight
one
division
complaint.
he was in, there were guys there that he didn't fight. I'm just
Yeah,
throwing
but
it out
you could say it about anybody though. You could say it about Floyd. Like those
Well,
guys he didn't fight.
You can, but these style like these were clear fights he should have fought at the time.
Some guys are do it worse than others, though. We have to be honest
No,
about it.
no, no. I agree with you. Like obviously Floyd's up here, like Mikey's down here somewhere. Like I get it. But what I'm saying is, like he's here in the Hall of Fame, like right here.
I still think Floyd fought a lot of good fighters, especially when he was younger. I think the big criticism was back after the De La Hoya fight when he stepped away.
Look, can we all agree that Floyd was a Hall of Famer like after he was done with lightweight?
Yes.
Right.
And the best version of him, I think, was at 140.
I agree. Well, he looked amazing against Gennady. But my point is, whatever he did after that, it's like
Lanyap. It's like Barry Bonds, right? Barry Bonds had 2 Hall of Fame careers.
He did, and they still didn't get him in.
I would say Floyd was probably the best 130-pounder of all time.
Like I'm just saying right now, I think Mikey's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
I think Calix is confusing all-time great with Hall of Famer. It's 2 different standards.
Well, here's the thing. Everyone's going to
ending.
have their own criteria. There's not one set criteria for it, so
4 divisions.
Well, like I was talking to someone and they didn't like Roy Jones. They were like, "Why does Roy Jones mean so much to you?" And their experience with Roy was the Tarver fight to now. They didn't live through the great fights. So I think if you're looking at Mikey from after Zlata Cannon to Sandor Martin, it's not really that awesome. But that ride with Top Rank right before it, that Verge, that was a pretty fun ride. But I get what you're saying because he never lived up to that potential of greatest of the era. But I still think he fits. He's like right on that fringe, but he's that guy that created special moments that I think he is someone a young kid goes to a boxing gym and wants to be like. It's
like Floyd, right? Anytime I criticize Floyd, it's not to diminish him and what he's accomplished. I envisioned someone who could have done even more than what he did. Right? Like I think he accomplished a lot of great things, but he could have done even more. And that's on a smaller scale. That's how I feel about Mikey.
Can I make one last point on this? Is Timothy Bradley to me is like a guy right on that line, right? And I'd vote for Timothy Bradley over Mikey Garcia. And my argument for that would be Timothy Bradley cleaned out 140, and he went to 147, and he fought all the best guys there. And that's my point is with Bradley, you saw the want for legacy to be great.
Bradley didn't fight Khan.
Amir Khan
at 140, he didn't clean it out.
Yeah, but Bradley was a badass. Like Bradley gets in over Mike.
100%. I agree with you, but not just one dude makes it. There's several dudes.
See, Bradley's a surefire Hall of Famer to me. Like that's a no-brainer to me.
He makes it in.
Fair.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's another one in the books. I want to thank everyone in the chat for listening. Thank the panel as always, and make sure you come back next week, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It will be on D Styles channel as well. Have a good one, guys. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.